Good morning. My name is Mary Stewart McGovern. Welcome to East Shore Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the past board chair and a member of the Board of Trustees. I would like to extend a special welcome to any newcomers who are with us this morning, and I encourage you to spend some time getting to know us. If you would like to be on our mailing list, we invite you to sign up at the greeters table. You will find additional information at the pamphlet rack in the narthex. Our greeters will be happy to answer any questions. Please join us for a coffee and polite conversation in the back of the sanctuary following the service. If you have not already done so, please turn off or silence your cell phone or other electronic devices. Please check your order of service for announcements and calendar information. You may also find it helpful to visit the newsstand at the rear of the sanctuary. Whether you ran in here today on little feet, or walked in briskly, or ambled in, or rolled in, you are welcome here. Whatever the flags of your heritage, you are welcome here. You may find new things to revere. Whatever your religious background or lack of religion, you are welcome here. May you find new things to discover. Whatever your political persuasion and whomever you have grown to love, you are welcome here in this religious community. May you find a connection here.
Good morning. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Many people are alive, but don't touch the miracle of being alive." He also told us to drink our tea slowly and reverently, as if it is the axis on which the whole earth revolves. Slowly, evenly, without rushing towards the future. Live the actual moment. Only this moment is life. Each week we gather here under this beacon and online to pause and live a moment of our lives together in community. We gather to explore and learn from one another, to find and build hope, and to hold reverent what we ourselves define as holy and real. Thank you for sharing this moment of your journey with us this morning. Please join us for our opening hymn, number 338, I Seek the Spirit of a Child. 100 years ago this year, a story by an author named Marjorie Williams was published. Originally written for her children, the story of the Velveteen rabbit has been republished over and over in many languages, and it beautifully and poignantly examines what it means to be real. Jared and I thought today that there would be no more fitting words to light our chalice with than this excerpt from the story. Jared, would you do us the honor of lighting the chalice? "What is real?" asked the rabbit, one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender, before Nana came to tidy the room. Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle? Real isn't how you are made, said the skin horse. It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play, but really love you, then you become real. Does it hurt? Asked the rabbit. Sometimes, said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. When you are real, you don't mind being hurt. Does it happen all at once, like being wound up, he asked, or bit by bit? It doesn't happen all at once, said the skin horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in your joints, and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you cannot be ugly, except to people who do not understand. One of the ways we honor our journey and come together in community each week is to pause and recognize our joys and cares, to lift up those that we may be carrying in silence and those which we have chosen to share aloud with one another in this book, which sits on a pedestal in the narthex. Prayers to those who are victims of hate and gun violence, and prayers for the lawmakers to have the courage and strength to strengthen our gun laws. Mary Mason has happy news to share. Her son and daughter-in-law had their baby last evening, welcoming newborn Daniel John Mason. And congratulations to Tim Katowski, who married his long-term girlfriend, Gabby, this week. Tim is the son of Julie and Ben Katowski and grew up at East Shore. If you have taken a stone from the bowl or have brought one with you, hold your stone in your hands. Feel its weight and strength against your palms. Allow your fingers to feel its surface as you breathe, to feel if the edges are rough or smooth. Think of the moments and the people in your life that have made you feel real, have worn you rough or smooth. Hold in your heart the moments that, as the skin horse told the rabbit, have loved our hair a little bit worn or made our joints a little bit loose. We will have a moment of silence to honor these moments and people, to hold up our joys and sorrows, struggles and celebrations, both those we carry in community and those spoken silently in our hearts. When the singing bowl sounds, please join in placing your stone in the bowl on the altar if you so choose. we offer this prayer. Spirit of life and love, in the silence, in the stillness, we hear the call of our own heart, its tender dreams, its sorrows and its triumphs, in the silence, in the stillness. We hear whispers of days gone by, of dreams still coming. The promise of the future we celebrate together, our individual journeys and dreams, and our collective ones. Knowing the journey is so much richer with others to share it. In the name of all that is holy we pray. Amen.
You were all that remained. Everything else, it slowly fades away. You were the one who forgave. You met me on the corner down Main Street. Whatever happened to those lights we stole? Whatever happened to those roads as you draw for me? Whatever happened to those stories you told me for falling asleep, for falling asleep? Tell me there's no need to be scared. Tell me that you'll always be there. Tell me that you mean what you said, and you'll be there. I'll be there. You made this place here my home. That feeling like I'm not alone. There's time now for us to grow. You met me on the corner down Main Street. Whatever happened to those lights we stole? Whatever happened to those roads as you draw for me? Whatever happened to those stories you told me for falling asleep, for falling asleep? Tell me there's no need to be scared. Tell me that you'll always be there. Tell me that you mean what you said, and you'll be there. I'll be there.
The words to today's responsive reading, Litany for Becoming. If you could join in on the many. To become is a lifelong process. Nothing is constant, not even the self. We evolve in the midst of narratives meant only for some, and ways of being made narrow by fear and power. We must then have the courage to listen to the truth of our own lives, to the wisdom that comes from within, responding without resistance or need to control, but with welcome and curiosity. This is what ensures our becoming is an unfolding of our truest self. This lifelong labor cannot be carried out alone. It requires help from friends and lovers, family and creaturely companions who bear witness to what makes us come alive and say to us, listen, look, feel, pay attention to that. Telling the stories, sharing in the memories, giving thanks for the relationships, understandings, and experiences past that have shaped us to this day. Celebrating new beginnings that excite, holding risks together, leaning into unknowns with the promises of support and companionship. Listening to the future calling uniquely to each of us in the midst of all life's noise. Helping one another find our place in the shared labor of collective life. Supporting each other in what is the world's ache is asking for us. To say for the first time, this is who I am. This is the truth of my body. This is what I know about myself. This is my name, and this is where my path is leading me to. And to have it heard, have it received, have it affirmed. And then to say it again and again as we change and the world changes. And to have each proclamation greeted with open-armed embrace. There is no me without you. We shape one another. The sacred that birthed us weaves our lives together so that we can only find ourselves through shared becoming. For my journey and all its winding ways, for yours, for all the saints who labored for what is, all the kin whose lives made ours possible, for all those yet to come, for whom living our truths today will mean breaking possibilities open for them tomorrow. We pause, we give thanks, we acknowledge.
On a cool day in October, a number of years ago, something incredible happened. Me. Yes, I was born into this world on that chilly October afternoon, and it was cause for celebration. And so my father put up a sign. It's made out of some kind of little blue tarp and just got a bunch of tape on it that says, "It's a boy," with my name. I always remember it as being much larger, grander, and more colorful in my head. Mostly because I never actually saw it. I remember it as a story. The idea that I was so loved that I was worth mentioning to everyone. While my parents were out doing all the hospital things you need to do before you bring an infant home, a pair of nuns, I'm told, noticed the sign. They left some things that those first-time new parents might need as they embarked on this journey no one is ever fully prepared for, having a child. I would assume that I ate some of it or wore some of it at some point. And am I referring to food and clothing, or just food? Am I right, parents? But I don't remember any of that. The one thing that was left there that day that I remember to this day is her. This is Nippy. Many years later, when I could finally talk and do other things, I had a plain black 6-pound bowling ball that we bought at a garage sale. Right above the 2 finger holes where bowling balls are often personalized, my bowling ball said Nippy. And so that is the name that I gave to my constant companion since my birth. From home to home and bed to bed we moved, and Nippy was always there. A constant reminder that my home, my community, loves me. I did not bring Nippy with me when I went to college. It was not a conscious decision, but Nippy stayed in my bed at home. And whenever I came home for a break and over the summer, there she was. A reminder that wherever I may roam, I could still call this room, this bed, my home. Like all such creatures, she's a bit fragile around the seams, and her left eye has been near permanently hugged closed. She's discolored all over, and the tag suggesting that she is machine washable feels like the only part of her that would survive a machine. And like the Velveteen rabbit, she knows, because I told her, that she is real.
Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in your joints and very shabby. Clearly, you can see why my dear friend Curious George here comes to mind when I think of the Velveteen Rabbit. His joints have certainly become loose. He's become quite distinguished in his shabbiness over the years, and while his eyes dropped out longer ago than I can remember, George has quite achieved his status of real. You see, I had a veritable menagerie of stuffed companions as a child, each with their own particular origin story. George, I couldn't tell you quite when or where I got George. He was just always there. But the earliest story I remember of George is one of those stories that gets told over and over in my family. I was probably about 4 when my mom and grandmother came home and told me that my grandfather was in the hospital. A quadruple bypass. Those words, quadruple bypass, meant nothing to tiny little me. All I understood was he was in a scary place, capital letter, hospital, and that I would not be able to visit him. Children were not allowed on the ward. I, of course, was immediately concerned. Who would take care of my grandpa? Who would keep him company and amuse him and snuggle him, especially if I, adorable little favorite, only granddaughter at the time, couldn't visit him? It just wasn't fair. But my mind immediately seized upon a solution. Curious George. George was going to go with Grandpa, I told my mom, very seriously and only slightly dramatically. George accompanied my grandfather through his surgery and recovery, and when he returned home, my grandfather regaled me with stories of how George had kept him company and how the nurses had fawned over him and threatened to steal him. This story has been told over and over through the years. I lost track of George after I grew up. I assumed I had just lost him in one move or another. About a year before my son was born, almost to the day, my grandfather passed away. Devastated, I sat with my mom, looking through pictures, laughing through tears, and sharing stories. And of course, the stories immediately turned to Curious George and his infamous hospital trip. My mother got up, walked into the other room, came back in and placed George in my arms, and placed a near look-alike on the table. George, in representation of my grandfather this time, now sits on my dresser each night. And that look-alike was buried with my grandfather to keep him company. The third, Curious George, now watches over my son each night, a gift from his grandmother to remember the great-grandfather he will never meet.
I attended the 3rd session of a multi-session training series 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday morning. At the very beginning of the session, the presenter, her name is Erica, took the time to acknowledge the most recent mass shooting at the time. I emphasize at the time because since I started writing this, even though it was only a week ago, we all know that I am no longer referring to the most recent mass shooting. Erica took the time to acknowledge the most recent mass shooting at the time for many reasons. For one, it was certainly on all of our minds. We're a mixed group that does not work in the same fields, doing the same things, but we all work for nonprofit organizations dedicated in some way to trying to make life better for populations of people whose lives could certainly use something better. Mental health, homelessness, community organizing, recreation, things like that. She said that morning that she had not yet committed the names of those who died, those 10 people in a Buffalo supermarket, she had not yet committed their names to memory. But she wanted to. She wanted to avoid, even just for herself, to allow infamy for their killer and to let those 10 people fade away into obscurity like so many others. She wanted Ruth Whitfield, Roberta Drury, Aaron Salter, Hayward Patterson, Pearl Young, Geraldine Talley, Celestine Cheney, Catherine Massey, Marcus Morrison, and Andre McNeil to be real in her mind. A name is just a start, but it goes such a long way. That's why I told you that the presenter of this training series is named Erica. You still don't know anything about her. You don't know anything about her personality, but you know her name. And that makes her real to you. Because you know someone named Erica. You can picture her in your mind right now. Remember the times you laughed together, cried together, shared a conversation, made some kind of connection. You don't need to know this Erica because the name is connected to something real. The last name does that for you too. You don't know the family, but you know there is a family. You don't know if they love and are loved deeply by their family or if the love is thoroughly broken. But there is love there in that last name. Because no matter how strong it is or was, that name is a connection to real people. They are real people who are missed and remembered. On Tuesdays, I run a therapy group that I call Explore. I named it that because Explore uses a therapeutic modality called adventure therapy. And adventure therapy uses group problem-solving tasks and games to learn, rehearse, and improve personal and interpersonal life skills. We're talking emotion regulation, community building, personal strengths, making mistakes, and, of course, problem solving. At the end of the group, we went into my office to grab all of our stuff, book bags, phones, etc. And we walked out to meet the parents and make sure everyone makes it safely across the parking lot to the vehicles waiting to take them home. And then I walked back to my office to debrief the group with our intern, Natalie, and write up the group notes. And then the do not disturb time that I set for the length of the group ended, and my phone filled with breaking news notifications. There was very little available information at the time, no names, but those kids were already real to me. Because I had just walked 8 of them out of the building just moments before. You welcomed some of them home from school that day. And they were riding so high on a field day or some other last week of school activity that they didn't quite get it when you hugged them a little tighter than usual. The name is a start, but the connection is ultimately what makes them feel real to us. They are like us in some way, or they are like someone for whom we care very deeply. And so we mourn, along with their friends, family, and community. A piece of the interconnected web is missing, and we feel it too. That song I sang earlier, Blue, by Angus and Julia Stone, was written as part of a full album of songs to be used in a video game. The game is the latest installment in a series of games that explore very real human relationships with an element of supernatural power layered over top. This particular game focuses heavily on the relationship between the main protagonist, Alex, and her brother, Gabe. And that is why the Australian singer-songwriter siblings, Angus and Julia Stone, were chosen to write so much of the music to be featured in the game. Now, for those of you who are wondering, and might perhaps have been worried that you wouldn't remember to look it up later about how Angus and Julia Stone might be related, you're welcome. Names are a powerful start. They can really get us wondering about a person. How are they connected to others? What else can I know about them? What makes them real? Alex Chen, the protagonist of the video game, is decidedly not a real person. As we are often reminded at the end of many a piece of visual media, any similarities to any person, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. And that's an important reminder, not just for the legal protection of the company that produced the game, but for all of us who play games and watch movies, read books, and take in any form of entertainment that involves fictional characters. Because sometimes, especially if it's a very good story, they feel real. It starts with the name, of course. They have a name because it's easier to remember and more entertaining than first fictional character introduced in the novel, or that one guy with the hair. But the name draws us into a connection because that's how we refer to real people we know. And then there's the story. That things that happen to these characters, that's how stories work. There's an adventure, a mystery, some science and some fiction, a spicy romance. We follow these characters into a world where sometimes literally incredible things happen. But also they have conversations with other characters. They walk, and talk, drive, eat, things that you and the people you know also do. It would be incredibly boring if the guy with the hair just sat in a chair in a room with nothing in it and never did anything. Although it makes you wonder why he's referred to as the guy with the hair. Do other people in this world not have hair, or is it just that his hair is particularly unique? And to say that the room has nothing in it is entirely accurate. He does have a chair. He's been afforded some degree of comfort while he sits and does nothing, which then begins to make you wonder, why is he doing nothing? Is it a choice? Is he being forced to do nothing? How would anyone know if he didn't do nothing or if he tried to leave the room? Is someone watching him? Is it me? I'm the one who's watching? Can he not do anything because I'm watching? And therein lies one of the most wonderful things about human beings. We make things real, whether they like it or not. Forget fictional characters with their interesting backstories involving rooms and chairs and hair. An inanimate object cannot do anything without me. And yet she's real. I gave her a name, I know her story, and she's been there with me for almost 32 years. She is real. Many of you share the same story, the same feeling for your own stuffed things that Bree and I and the boy from the Velveteen rabbit share. For characters from your favorite books and shows and other media, from among the dead involved against their will in the latest national tragedy. Even those dead closest to our hearts, from our own friends and family. We come together to memorialize them, to remind everyone, ourselves included, that they are real, that they live on in our memories forever, in the stories we tell, the songs we sing, the tattoos we wear. But why wait until they are physically gone or on their way out? Whatever happened to those stories you told me? Why not remind them right here, right now, how much their stories mean to you? And that maybe you'd like to hear another one. You made this place here my home. Why not tell them every day that they feel like home to you? I would like to invite all of us to share in the blessing of the Velveteen rabbit. Let us make each other real. When I see you parent, that makes you real to me. When your children are learning, growing, exploring, changing, when they follow their passions, transition their identity, find comfort and discomfort in the world around them, you feel real to me. Because I see the ones who don't do any of that. Because it's not safe. Because they don't know how. Because they don't feel real themselves. I know what it means to walk with them for the briefest of moments. An imperfect person leading an imperfect person toward an imperfect something real. And for that reason, I recognize what makes you real to me. When you sing, with me or without me, that makes you real to me. When you make music and you struggle with passion to make it the best that it can be. When you remember how it was and pine for the best of how it could be. When you remember, you feel real to me. Because I have always seen the world through the lens of music. The angst of punk rock and metal, the quiet passion of post-rock and other instrumentals, the calm connection of folk and Americana, and the love that is inherent across many genres. Because we sing, you feel real to me. And when you join us from the other side of an electronic device, a phone, a computer, maybe even a television screen, you feel real to me. Right now, you are just one number at the top left corner of one of my phone screens. And I may never know your name, even if we have met in person, if you don't comment somewhere down below. I will never know anything of your story, of what makes you real to other people. But I bring 2 phones with me to church every Sunday morning because I know how much this means of connection means when it is the only way you can connect. So simply by making use of this opportunity, knowing why it is here, you feel real to me. You are real to me. Here and now. And I carry you with me throughout the week. I carry you in my heart. Tell me there's no need to be scared. Tell me that you'll always be there. Tell me that you mean what you said, and you'll be there. I'll be there. A few months ago, for worship, we used poetry. We brought in the poetry that we loved, we brought in poems that we had written, and I shared a poem during this part of the service that I got a lot of positive feedback for. So I used it again once before, and I'd like to read it to you once again today. The people gathered all around, when from his face he loosed a glorious sound. He said, "Thank you for keeping up with trimming the hedges and sending in your monthly pledges. Now I know not all have the stomach to ask it, but when we pass around the basket, I hope it is not a difficult labor to share your extra cash with a neighbor. Unless, of course, you were a visitor here. Then your presence alone gives us great cheer. Please let the basket pass you by, and not just because I'm a nice guy, but because you came here to find a community, and before we ask for a single penny, we want to welcome you and ask how you feel, to help you find a faith home that makes you real. So thank you, all, for whatever you do. Ushers, arise. We are counting on you.
In here, but on behalf of your Board of Trustees, I thank you for your pledges and your gifts to this organization and this congregation. They will be used with careful stewardship to make sure that the lights stay on, the door stays open, and we all have this place that we call home.
As we draw near to a close this morning, as a means of benediction, I share the words of Reverend Heather Ryan Starr. May whatever gatherings or activities we engage in this Sunday afternoon help restore us, our connections to one another, our sense of hope, beauty, and fun in this world, our deep knowing that we have to take care of ourselves and each other. With love and joy, if we are to soulfully survive this world's mayhem. And now I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join in reciting our bond of union. We join hands
in Unitarian Universalist fellowship, pledging ourselves to an individual religious freedom which transcends all creeds, not to think alike, but to journey together.